What's going on, guys? Polygon Don here, and today I want to talk about some of the PS4's hidden gems. With the PS5 still finding its feet, now's a great time to comb through some of the PS4's more obscure and underrated releases. Let's take a look. Alright guys, first up we got the Descenders, which is a downhill mountain bike sim that leans a little more on the arcadey side of things. Now, after a brief tutorial of the basic controls, you're entered into a lobby park of sorts where you can see other players and practice your skills on the ramps and jumps dotted around the park, all that good stuff. From here you can enter the career mode, time trials and free roam, but I'll mainly be discussing the career mode as it's the meat and potatoes of the game. Now, the career mode consists of procedurally generated maps featuring tracks for you to conquer that vary between steepness, curves and stunts, with the majority of tracks sharing a combination of all three, allowing you to select a route that best suits your abilities or preferences. Occasionally you'll see tracks that have sponsorship deals, and completing these grants you access to better gear and cosmetics. However, you also earn these through natural progression, so there's no real pressure to fit them into your run. The main objective to the campaign is to survive each track of the map, eventually reaching and overcoming the map's boss track. If you run out of lives before you can achieve this, then it's back to the drawing board. But being procedurally generated means no two runs are ever the same, and once the boss track is cleared, you're able to progress to the next area map. A nice touch is that clearing a boss track's bonus objective 3 times allows you to bypass that map altogether, enabling you to start your runs with full health on later and more difficult maps in the campaign. And speaking of health, you start each run with 4 health bars. Coming off your bike will lose you a bar, and losing all 4 means game over. However, each track in your run provides you with a randomised bonus objective, displayed in top right of the screen. Things like perform 2 clean landings or don't use your brakes, etc. Completing these objectives will grant you additional health bars that stack. Building up your lives for the harder tracks is beneficial, however spending your run gobbling them up on the easier tracks does incur a cost. There is a night and day cycle within the game, and taking too long to make it to the boss track might mean that you're doing it in the dead of night. Only being able to see a meter in front of you whilst trying to perform jumps at ridiculous speeds isn't exactly ideal. Also, throughout the game you'll earn rep points by cycling a little more extreme, such as performing stunts or cycling at high speeds, and these rep points convert to crew members, which are essentially enhanced abilities or buffs like quicker turns in the air or wider roads. They're not crucial, but they're earned naturally and can help in keeping you on your bike for longer. Now, this isn't an easy game. Relatively quickly you'll be able to land jumps and slide around tight corners, but it isn't long until the game pushes back. The second map has quite a large difficulty spike to the first, and took me many attempts to even reach the boss track, let alone clear it. A classic case of easy to pick up but difficult to master. Stick with it though, and you'll find it has a brilliantly addictive gameplay loop and is heavy on the just one more go appeal. Strangely, it also manages to be both a relaxing and exhilarating game all at once. The sounds of your gears and chains spinning wildly as you reach speeds your legs can't even keep up with while you careen through alpine settings gives it an element of chill and thrill. It's quite brilliant, to be honest, and isn't something you tend to come across often. This is also excellently reflected in the game's soundtrack. Granted, one I haven't been able to showcase here for copyright reasons, but you'll just have to trust me. It's a heady mix of liquid drum and bass that provides the tempo perfect for that feeling of acceleration and the laid-back jazz tones that you want when you're surrounded by stunning countryside landscapes. So, to surmise, I'm no downhill mountain biker, so I can't attest to how accurate this is as a mountain bike sim, but as a pick up and play arcade number, this is incredibly good fun. Seriously, this game's amazing and took me completely by surprise. Don't skip it.
Japan, early Edo period.
Nothing personal. Just can't have you warn the others up there. Looks like a whole nest of guards. Would have thought this might actually get challenging. Stay out of sight. Death from above.
Alright guys, so next up we've got Shadow Tactics Blades of the Shogun, which is a stealth-based real-time strategy game set during Japan's Edo period and starts with a mysterious warlord jeopardizing stability in the region. And because of this, the Shogun has tasked Mugen, which is you, a samurai, with eliminating the warlord and his allies. During the beginning missions, you will meet and recruit other agents specializing in infiltration and assassination, from inquisitive and ingenious young outcasts to ninjas, sharpshooters and more. Together you and your assembled band of assassins will work your way through the gorgeously detailed looking missions, performing various acts of espionage, sabotage and assassination. It's a slow paced game and one that requires patience and cunning to progress. Blindly running in will get you nowhere and you'll be seeing that game over screen soon enough. And trust me, you'll be seeing that plenty anyway, as this isn't a walk in the park by any means. It's not unfair, it's just punishing if you don't take it seriously. But once the penny dropped, I started to take fewer turns to complete each mission and had grown accustomed to and even quite fond of the ragtag bunch of scoundrels that were my crew, and was keen to see where the story would take them. The stealthy strategic gameplay is really quite fun. A quick press of a button and a flick of the left analog stick allows you to select which character to control, and as a result their individual special abilities, whether that's laying down traps, climbing buildings or taking out multiple enemies at once. In addition to their special abilities, each of them will have an item that will aid them in battle. Mugen, for instance, has a bottle of sake that enemy soldiers just can't say no to, leaving their patrol patterns if they spot one you strategically placed somewhere. While Yuki has a bear trap-like contraption and a whistle that she uses to lure inquisitive soldiers to their death. It's great fun and gives you a really rewarding sense of devilish deviousness where you can't help but smile watching your wicked plan all come together. The variety of characters is really what makes this game shine, as it gives you multiple avenues of possibilities to overcome the task laid out for you and keeps each attempt feeling fresh. There's also a shadow mode, and this allows you to select multiple characters, designating actions such as hide, assassinate or snipe for example, and with the press of a button at the time of your choosing will execute all commands simultaneously in a gloriously fluid chain of deadly events. And the scope of this mechanic doesn't fully come into its own until a little way in, but can be incredibly effective when used well. Or you could just sit there rotating and staring at the map for minutes on end just trying to figure out where to start. I'm not an RTS aficionado, but I do like a strategy game every once in a while. A relaxing, almost therapeutic experience that goes well with playing a more intense action or horror game, acting like a sort of comfort blanket for when the other one gets a little too intense. What I wasn't expecting was for this to dominate my gaming sessions. It's incredibly addictive once you settle into a groove and is way deeper than I imagined, with excellent writing and voice acting. If you like what you've seen and heard, I think it's definitely worth a spot in your collection. It's still not expensive to buy, but I can see this being a desirable title in the future, as I can't imagine they printed a ton of these. So get it while you can.
Such a good trap.
I guess my story starts like so many others, with a girl. A girl who worked in a photography store in a quiet little corner of Toronto, Canada. Julia.
What are you doing, Harry? Are you meant to be playing with that camera? I shall be silly until you put that camera away.
1111 Memories Retold is a narrative-driven game about two soldiers from opposing sides during First World War. The game focuses on Harry, a photographer's assistant from Canada, and Kurt, an engineer from Germany, as they both enlist for different reasons. Harry to impress his childhood sweetheart, and Kurt to find his son who had recently gone missing from battle. The drama and sacrifices of its two protagonists and the horrors they both witness are the foundations of the game, and you follow both of their journeys, selecting between them at the start of each chapter. Gameplay mechanics are limited as this plays almost like a point-and-click adventure. For Harry, the main objective is to take photos documenting the war effort from the front lines, and as Kurt, between investigating the whereabouts of your son, will have the odd engineering-related environmental puzzle to complete. None are even remotely hard, which was a slight disappointment at first, but as I got more invested into the story, I was thankful as it didn't delay progression. Eventually the two worlds of our protagonists collide, and for a brief spell will share screen and gameplay time. This also creates slightly more detailed puzzles to work out using both characters, switching between them at your discretion using left and right on the D-pad, but this also allows for some further character development. Now I won't go into too much details, we're in spoiler territory now, but hampered by a language barrier, the two must figure out a way to communicate and get out of the predicament they're in. This comes in the form of narrative choices throughout and will ultimately affect the game's ending, of which there are several I believe. Now this isn't like other games that focus on that time period of our history, replacing gunplay for photography and strategy for light environmental puzzles, and aesthetically it looks like nothing else either. It has like an almost impressionist watercolour art style that is truly stunning in some areas of the game and makes character models have an almost ghostly appeal to them, like they've been washed away with time. It's definitely unique and marries up with the narrative brilliantly, as does the orchestral score. The writing is incredibly good and the characters are brought to life exceptionally well thanks to the voice and acting talents of Elijah Wood and Sebastian Koch. It does fall into some cliche trappings here and there, but for the most part I was very much engaged and eager to see the story reach its conclusion. It's not a long game, at around 5 to 6 hours you can easily complete it in 1 or 2 sessions, and at the time of writing it's still well under £10 on eBay. I've even seen it as low as £5. Due to its unique art style and captivating story, at that price I think it's definitely worth a spot in your collection. Next up we've got Matterfall, which is a side-scrolling platform shooter set in a sci-fi world that has been infected by an alien material known as smart matter. You very quickly get control of Avalon Darrow and her armoured battlesuit and are tasked with the minor request of saving the planet. As far as story setup goes, that's pretty much it. You're good, they're bad, here's a gun, now go have fun kind of thing, which to be honest is completely fine with these type of arcade shooters. As long as the gameplay is fast and responsive and it's got pretty explosions, most of the time I'm in. And this doesn't disappoint in that regard. Matterfall is developed by Housemarque, the studio that also made Resogun, Nex Machina, Super Stardust HD, and the soon-to-be released PS5 exclusive Returnal. To say they have an understanding of this genre is the understatement of the century. I'm not sure if there's another studio out there that makes shooters with this much level of polish. The games I mentioned above were outstanding, and this is no different in my opinion. And for me, the reason it's a hidden gem is that while there was plenty of hype for the other projects they developed, I feel like this got no such fanfare and got kind of swept under the rug slightly. What sets Matterfall apart from the other shooters is that it's a 3D twin-stick shooter in a 2D environment that uses colour polarity as a gameplay mechanic. Enemies are made of red matter and you are made of blue matter. Sliding or dashing through them briefly covers them in blue matter, immobilizing them for a short period of time, allowing you the opportunity to do your worst, increasing your level score in the process. This also has the added benefit of looking pretty damn tasty when you pull it off. As well as frenetic shooting, Matterfall will ask you to be a dab hand at platforming, and this is actually really well implemented. You can double jump, slide, dash in the air, and most crucially, create your own platforms. They can also act as a makeshift barrier to protect you from the more bullet hell prone enemies, or provide the few seconds of relief needed to formulate an escape plan. The ability to turn loose matter into physical structures is a masterstroke and definitely makes the runs through the levels feel engaging and fun. And just like Resogun, there are helpless humans dotted around that need rescuing, and doing so will unlock augmentations. These augmentations are passive and active abilities that can be equipped to shortcut commands on the D-pad, ranging from faster recharge rates to homing missiles, grenades and more. Another mechanic borrowed from Resogun is the overcharge ability. Fitted with overcharge technology, your armour absorbs the residue left from defeated enemies, gradually filling up a gauge. Once full, you'll enter the overcharged state, slowing down time whilst making you invulnerable and your weapons far more powerful. It will also detonate an area of effect blast once fully depleted to round up any last few stragglers you may have missed. I really enjoyed this game. Crispy, glass-shattering visuals at a buttery smooth 60 frames per second. This really has to be played to be fully appreciated. It's bloody brilliant. Think Resogun, Mega Man and Metroid combined with an 80s inspired synth-heavy soundtrack. And just as a heads up, currently at the time of writing, 3 eBay stores in the UK are selling new and sealed PAL copies of the game for under £10 with plenty in stock. This is an absolute steal and I highly recommend snagging a copy at that price, as I reckon they'll climb again once Returnal comes out. Alright guys, last up we've got Ghost of a Tale, which is an action RPG set in a dark medieval fantasy world inhabited by several species of anthropomorphic animals. You play as Tilo, a courageous minstrel mouse on a perilous quest through dungeons and lands full of danger to find his true love. Having been captured and thrown into a dungeon by rats, the game starts with a prison break. Gaining control of Tilo, you must help him escape his cell, the dungeon and the surrounding lands. It's primarily a stealth game, but the setting and character design can lean it towards horror at times, with some dimly lit dungeon areas and its overpowered enemies swiftly bringing on the dread. At the same time, however, it's a truly stunning game. Its world is colourful, richly detailed and lore heavy, drip feeding you nuggets of information and history through letters and documents you find out in the wild, as well as footnotes during conversations between NPCs. These are highlighted words or events that when selected open up a side window describing what's highlighted. This is normally something I sidestep in games, to be honest, but occasionally the writing and world building is so compelling I need to read everything. And this is one of those occasions. It all adds to making the world feel more believable and long established. And just a side note, the first few hours of me playing this game was spent trying to figure out what the world's look and vibe was so heavily reminding me of. It was irritating me so much that I had to pause it for a quick research and media break. Turns out the game was successfully funded by a crowdfunding campaign in 2013 and was pretty much the brainchild of one guy, Lionel Galat, an animator and animation director for DreamWorks and Universal. Which is an insane feat for one developer considering how good this game looks and plays. I also discovered that Galat himself noted that inspiration came from films such as The Secret of Nim, The Dark Crystal and Disney's Robin Hood, as well as from games such as The Legend of Zelda, Dark Souls and Eco. I mean, the 3 films he mentions were a staple diet in my house growing up. My sister had them all recorded on VHS and I don't think a week went by in the 90s where I didn't watch at least one of them. Also, the Soulsborne series and the Zelda series are probably my 2 most beloved gaming franchises ever. So yeah, now that strange nostalgia I was feeling during the first few hours of a brand new game was all starting to make sense. I should probably mention that this is quite a hard game, or at least it's not going to be for everyone. I wouldn't call this a casual game at all, despite its cartoonish looks. It's quite a deep RPG with sometimes unforgiving stealth mechanics in place. This one doesn't hold your hand at all, it barely tells you what to do, so you're going to need to have an inquisitive mind and an observant eye. But even then not everything is noticeable until you're right on top of it and the button prompt appears. So there will be times where you'll feel stuck or lost, but another investigation of the surrounding areas usually gets things moving along. Another issue at first is just how much more overpowered the enemies are to you. You'll have to be smart, stealthy and agile if you want to succeed, and you'll swiftly get used to peering out of barrels and chests. A truly stunning game with some outstanding writing and world building. I don't understand why more people aren't shouting about this from the rooftops, especially given its development story. If you want a unique stealth-based RPG and are fans of 80s and 90s dark fantasy films, then this niche little bad boy is the game you've been waiting for. Okay, so that was 5 PS4 hidden gems from my collection. Hopefully some of you saw something interesting that might have previously flown under your radar. They're all great and unique games in my opinion, so if you're after something a little different and criminally underrated, give one of these a shout. In the next video I'll be covering the PS Vita. What with the latest news of its PSN store closing, it feels only right to honour it and cover some of the great games on that amazing system. So subscribe if that's something that might interest you. But that's about it for this one. I'm signing off and ducking out. Take care and see you soon.